guys want a shot at winning a copy of Call of Duty World War II for the console of your choice for absolutely free, a couple of my friends and I are doing a little giveaway. Link is down there in the description below. Go check it out if you're interested. One thing that many people might not necessarily take as a conscious thought whenever thinking about a game and what it has in its contents deals with what developers have to go through in terms of figuring out what works for every region of the world. Of course, as a video game and the business industry goes, you want to sell as many copies as possible. So thinking on that global standpoint is something you have to consciously and totally do when developing a game and of course when trying to push that out there. Now, some places are much different than others, some much more strict on some content than others, and as such, there have to be some different changes and amendments to the game to either cover up or completely remove some things that are in the game as a current build for these different regions. And one thing that we saw as of recently, and what is probably most notable of Call of Duty World War II, deals with the swastikas, because in Germany, the swastikas are completely banned. They cannot be shown in any likeliness, so therefore we've seen the Iron Cross, and of course that was something that was a little bit of a controversy for those that want historical realism and accuracy within World War II, and even going back to the Zombies maps from Zombies Chronicles and Black Ops 3, we saw the Iron Cross instead of swastikas there as well. Now, whatever your philosophy on this is, that's not necessarily the topic of discussion that I want to bring up here with this one. This is more so prefacing this video with something that you guys will probably totally recognize here out of this in recent terms, but we want to talk about in a little bit more in depth because there's been more changes that have been brought to light and really kind of begs the question on what these could mean for World War II as a whole. And one thing I think that's comes out of this interesting little bit of change is some details about the campaign that might actually hint towards how the player themselves actually gets to interact with the game. While it is ambiguous right now, I'm gonna clear the air a little bit for you guys and we're gonna jump right into it. So that said, firstly, we have mentioned once again that the German version of World War II will have some alterations here to it. And that was something that we knew of as of the story trailer that we got released just over a month now at this point. For those of you guys that pay attention to the Call of Duty YouTube channel, you might notice that of course you're going to see the primary one that is selected for your region. So if you're in an English speaking country, that's primarily the ones that are usually always the ones with the most views. But they also do put up other non-English versions of the trailer for those that are in different regions of the world that very much so enjoy Call of Duty, that really want to keep up to date with everything there within. And so we got all these different trailers in which in the storyline trailer, we do get to see us approaching a Nazi compound in which the banners do have the dawning of the swastika. Now, in the German version, of course, that is not there. And so that was the first initial little tease that we had that we're going to see multiple different variations of the game, or at least some alterations for different regions. Now, as of recently, actually, there was a nice little article by Kotaku in which they did some nice little detective journalism here at this one in taking a look at the rating for Australia. Now, why this is a little bit different is the fact that there were actually two different rating classifications that were submitted through the board that does the ratings in Australia. Now, both of these categories and classifications are still R18+, which is essentially for those that are in North America or in the UK, M for mature, or I believe it's PEGI 18 in the UK and in Europe. However, there was a specific reason as to why Activision reapplied for the classification of the rating here, and it's something that unless you look at the actual consumer advice, you can't actually see anything as to why they reapplied. And this was actually to make a little bit of an amended change to get the rating on a changed version for Australia alone. If you took a look at the previous version of the rating, the consumer advice contained high impact violence and threat of sexual violence, online interactivity. If you take a look at the current version for that classification and the consumer advice, it just says high impact violence, online interactivity. Now, again, doing some digging here along with the board, Kotaku really made a nice little case as to why this is in fact happening with this version in Australia. Now, before we go any further, a quick little spoiler warning here for you guys. This does detail a little bit of campaign and a little bit of a interaction that you have as a player with the environments here with this. So if you guys don't want to hear about it, of course, you can totally skip forward by probably about a minute and a half, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, a quick little spoiler warning here for this so that you guys that don't want to have anything of the campaign detailed for you, you have the chance to click off. Now, in one section of the game, we know that we are going to be able to play as Rousseau, the female spy from the French Resistance, and she infiltrates a German building, probably alongside the colleagues that we see from our main platoon. We see them meet up in her character detail video, but But nonetheless, while she's inside, she sees somebody being dragged by a Nazi soldier into a closet in what is described against her will, screaming, "You're all pigs." Now, Rousseau ends up going into that closet and the soldier says, "Leave, this is none of your business," to which the player is granted the option of either leaving or killing the soldier. Now, once again, from this little bit of detail from this, the player, if they choose to leave, can see in the peripheries the soldier advancing towards the woman that he just dragged into the closet, and with an audio file of what sounds like the unzipping of pants, and an audio cue from the NPC woman as well too. So you probably know where this is going. It implies some sexual assaults, but at no time is it actually shown to the character themselves. It's more so assumed that it's happening. And of course, if we take a look back at that initial classification for the rating, that fits the detailing of threat of sexual violence. Now, according to the board that made the rating, the reason for it being adjusted was that Activision actually modified the version of the game and altered not only some of the audio files that we hear, but also the woman's NPC character clothing as well too, to which the removal of the audio track in which it would be the unzipping of the pants, and that the woman, instead of being in a skirt in this version, ends up being in pants and a regular top. So it sort of takes out that innuendo and that assertion of what we could clearly make out, and thus this creates a variation in the game version that we'll see in Australia. And the board then detailed that, of course, that these changes warranted a reduction in the reasoning for the R18+ classification and has since had it modified. Now again, I'm not here to debate with the philosophy of this. Whatever your thoughts and stances are on this, of course, that's totally yours and is respectable in every single way. I know some people may see this as a little bit too much censorship, as well as what people thought with the swastikas in Germany, but that's just the way that the region operates and their stances on those situations. So while of course it might be totally something that doesn't need change to you, some people may view it differently. So once again, we're not here to debate the philosophy and the politics of it, but instead talk about the version and the alteration of games themselves. So with multiple different region-specific variations, it's interesting to see what this could lead to and how many versions there actually could be. Previously, a lot of what we see does have, for the most part, a lot of itself encompassed as one unified project, as something that the core game itself is projected to everybody. We have seen different cases in the past where, say, in Russia, the No Russian mission for Modern Warfare 2 was completely cut, and in the Japanese versions of that same mission, if you shot any of the soldiers, you actually failed the mission itself. So we've seen this sort of stuff in the past, but as for what it means for how many different variations this time, with two clear-cut versions completely different at two different locations, it's interesting to see that this might actually warrant more changes and more splits in what we see for Call of Duty World War II. Now, one thing that I also want to circle back around to, and what I think is kind of an unrelated but also partially related portion of this, deals with the option the player is given, in which you can either kill the soldier or leave. Now, this is where I think it gets interesting, because we've seen this happen before, most notably in Black Ops 2, in which we had multiple different outcomes for how the campaign itself would work out. Now, while I think it would be absolutely awesome to have multiple different endings, I don't know if exactly that's how it will work out, because what we do have to bear in mind is, while we do have a detailed experience here of what we can play in the game, and probably one of the only things we have in terms of information for how missions go, if we have options, if there's anything that we can do out of the ordinary at all, it's something that this details a little bit of a yes or no scenario in which we can decide the fate of something. So while it's only an NPC character, presumably, it does present us the option as such. And as to why, we don't exactly know. We don't know if there's anything in which it bolsters our character's performance or anything if they do the right thing. We don't know, but it's interesting to think about, because we haven't really seen these sorts of prompted questions to allow this since Black Ops 2, and the ability to change the entire outcome of how the campaign and the storyline works out. So it's interesting to see here, I think, and of course, perhaps it's detailed in a manner that makes it look like we have choices, but it's one of those things where there's no prompt or anything, and you can essentially just kill the NPC and it doesn't do anything. We'll see in time, I guess, because we are just under 2 weeks now away from the launch, but nonetheless, I thought this was all very intriguing. Firstly, the changes that we've seen already detailed to us in World War II from the German versions to the rest of the world, with the swastikas and the replacement there with the Iron Cross, and of course now to the Australian version of this with less assertion of sexual assault. It's interesting to see these changes come out, and of course that there may be more that we don't necessarily see at the surface. Of course, the big hitter was that swastika version with Germany and the rest of the world, but once again, bearing in mind that developers have to take into consideration every other region in the world so they can sell their game, it's interesting to see where this might actually lead to other avenues of slight alteration. So that said, leave me your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Do you think there's going to be some more alterations for different regions in the world? And of course, also, do you think that we'll have the ability to change the outcome of the campaign, or at least be presented with smaller little tasks that we can either say yes or no to, like we saw detailed to us in this rating explanation given by the Australian rating board? Love to hear your thoughts down there in the comment section down below, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to stay up to date with everything we have here regarding Call of Duty World War II. We're just under 2 weeks away, and while it's gonna drag on, I think, my friends, we're gonna keep pressing on, and hopefully you guys do enjoy the content while you're here. If you guys don't wanna miss any of it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat. And finally, if you guys wanna follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. I practically live on Twitter, so if you guys wanna strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But that said, now to the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.